Alright, here we are for some standard action after a set of modern videos in preparation for GP Bologna. We are back to standard, although it's not going to be this way in standard for very long, since we are rotating cans and fade pretty soon. But let's play some standard before it rotates. So we might play in the last tournament of this standard. So today we are going to play Mardu Midrange. It's a pretty straightforward list, with the exception of a full playset of Thought-Knot Seer. And let's talk about Thought-Knot Seer. Since there has been like the popularity of Mardu Green has raised a lot. It's one of the most popular decks, especially in Magic Online. I think Thought-Knot Seer might be a good card to have, since it takes all the Goblin Dark Dwellers and all of the high-end threats. Also, it's a good card on the play against Rally and Collected Company and Bank Company and such. So I wanted to try it out, and I think it's going to be pretty good. Also, it's a 4/4 body, which is pretty good. Obviously, it doesn't match up very well against Siege Rhino, but we have a lot of ways to deal with Siege Rhino. Sorry. So let's try to. So I think it's going to be pretty good if we can get rid of them. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about the spells. We have a full playset of Fiery Impulse. It's one of the best ways to interact with our opponent early in the game, and it's pretty good at killing 2 and 3 toughness creatures. So we are playing a full playset of it. Also, it plays very well with Soulfire. So there is a point where we can, with 5 mana up, we can play Fire Impulse every turn, which is pretty good. Also, we have a couple of dress to take, which plays very well with Thought-Knot Seer, because we can dress their removal spell and then play Thought-Knot Seer to exile their threat. So it's a pretty good way to protect our Thought-Knot Seer and also take their big threats. Also, we have a couple of draws to deal with Siege Rhino and big creatures. Also, again, it's a huge gain life spell with Soulfire Grandmaster. We're playing 6 2-drops, which I think it's pretty important, because we don't want to rely only on our high end spells. So I like having early creatures that I can utilize the way I need in every game. Sometimes on the play is going to be a threat that we can protect in the way that we can kill their threat, attack, and do it again for some turns. And then we have a bunch of 3 mana spells. Obviously, for Crackling Doom, no brainer, the best removal in the deck. 2 Colligan's Command. Lately, Colligan's Command has lost part of its power, but I think having 2 is still correct. It might not be correct, to be honest, but I think the resiliency the Colligan's Command gives to the deck is pretty good to not have it. It might, like, we could actually drop one of the copies, but but I'm gonna try 2 for the moment and see if it actually is good enough. Is it still good enough? Also, a couple of Runas Path. Since we don't have Gideons in our deck, it might be hard to kill some of the planeswalkers, like Gideon, for example. So I like having access to catch-all removal spells. And then 3 copies of Read the Bones. Obviously, since we are playing 4 Goblin Dark Dwellers, Read the Bones is much better than Painful Truths. And also, I think Read the Bones, in general, I like more Read the Bones than Painful Truths, because worst case scenario, yes, we are drawing 1 less card, but having access to scry 2 cards before drawing the cards is actually worth a card of Painful Truth. So I think it's roughly the same. We get roughly the same value, but we are paying 1 less life. We don't need to stretch our mana base to cast it. And then we have our 4 Thought-Knot Seers and 4 Goblin Dark Dwellers. And then we have our top end, which is Chandra, which is pretty good in all of the modes, especially the +1 and the -X. They are pretty good. And then, in order to support Thought-Knot Seer, we need to play 8 Painlands with 4 Caves of Koilos and 4 Battlefield Forge. And also we are playing a couple of Seagate Wreckage. Since we have incidental colorless mana lands, it's still a good land to have, even though it doesn't work well. It's gonna be sometimes awkward when you have Seagate and Crackling Dome, but for the most part, it's another way to deal with flooding. So on top of that, we have a couple of Shambling Bands and 1 Needle Spires as a way to pressure opponents when we are flooding out or after a Wrath effect or something like that. As for the sideboard, we are playing a couple of Elishing Cleric against Mono Red or Attacker Red, although for the most part, Mono Red or Red aggro decks are not very popular right now, but just in case we face some, it's good to have access to this, especially now that they are more token oriented, so the 1/3 body is pretty good. Also, another cheap removal spell like Silk Rub, it's good against aggro decks, and it's also good against Hangenberg Walker and Rally, since it exiles the creature. Also have access to 1 Hallowed Moonlight, 2 Collected Company and Rally decks. And we are playing Tainted Remedy. We are trying this card because I think this card is very good against Siege Rhino decks, against Soulfire decks, and especially against Rally decks. Their plan A is to drain our life with Cutthroat Zoloport, and this card excels at preventing that from happening. So I think it's a pretty good card. Also, it has incidental value against Pulse of Moraza or Shambling Bands, opposing Shambling Bands. So it's a pretty good card, I believe. So we're gonna try 1 copy of this. Also 2 copies of Kalitos, which is again pretty good against Rally especially, and against aggro decks where Thought-Knot Seer is not it doesn't excel. So we have 2 copies to bring in. A couple of Infinite Obliteration. I like this card a lot in Ramp, obviously, but you also like it against rally, and the thing is because we can activate their their main sack outlet, which is Nantuko Husk, and then we can play a fair game. And I think this version of Mardu plays a much better fair game against Rally without Nantuko Husk than any other deck, since they have a lot of one for ones, but we can grind them out. So I think having access to this, especially with Goblin Dark Dwellers, if we can play it twice, it's very hard for them to to win. Especially because we have like some decks have infinite obliteration, but it's not good because their game plan doesn't support uh, uh, doesn't support extirpating the one of their threats, like for example Nantuko Husk, and still be able to deal with their board. But that this is not the case with this Mardu midrange deck. Since we are not playing any token generator except Chandra, we can play one copy of your own plague, which is pretty good at dealing again with Thopters. Hungenberg Walker is pretty hard to deal with with this configuration, so we need answers in the board for them. Also, it stops all the Gideon tokens on all the Nissa tokens, and it's good against attacker red since they are token focused or they are token oriented. So it's pretty good. Transgress the Mind is good against, especially against ramp again. But it's also good against Mardu Green since they are very chopping heavy. Then a catch-all removal spell in form of Otteran. Also again, good at exiling uh, threats that we don't like, resilient threats, like for example, Wall Breaker. So it's pretty good to have access to this effect in the board. And for the last two copies of Radiant Flames, just again trying to deal with boards to early in the game and not falling too far behind. So that's all. I think this deck might have a hard game one against Rally, but other than that, I think it's a pretty good deck. It has game against all the archetypes, so let's give it a shot. I'll see you in a moment.